Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's Talkback. We are shifting gears now. We have special guests in the studio. Joshua Millburn and Ryan Nicodemus are both joining us here in the studio. Did I get that right, guys?
You did.
Right.
Excellent pronunciation.
Welcome to our little radio program. And you guys, I feel like I'm talking to a magic act. The Minimalists, ladies and gentlemen. So tell us a little bit about you guys and what you do.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so we run a website called Minimalists.com, and it was about 7 years ago. I was sort of living the American dream. I had achieved everything I ever wanted. I'm 35 years old now, and when I was 28, I had the six-figure salary. I was living in Dayton, Ohio. That's where I grew up.
Wow.
And the big house with more toilets than people, and all the stuff, really, to fill every corner of my my consumer-driven life. And I was really living the American dream. But then these two events happened to me. My mother died and my marriage ended, both in the same month.
Wow.
And these two events forced me to start to look around and question really what had become my life's focus. And I realized I was focused on the wrong stuff. I was focused on so-called success and achievement, and especially on the accumulation of stuff. And while I might have been living the American dream, it wasn't my dream. And it sort of took getting everything I thought that I wanted to realize that, you know what, maybe everything I ever wanted wasn't actually what I wanted at all. And so I started to figure out, what is important in my life. And I stumbled across this thing called minimalism, found a whole community of people who were living simpler, more deliberate lives, not as monks or ascetics living in caves or something like that, but living more deliberately with less stuff, but more purpose, more meaning, more relationships.
And how do you stumble onto minimalism? Like was there a little hobbit footprint you followed into the forest?
Well, sort of. It's something called Twitter.
Okay.
And which no one here in Missoula seems to use Twitter these days. But I was just getting on the social media, and thankfully I found that and not some sort of weird cult or something, because I was looking for answers at the time.
It was that or Scientology.
Woke up that morning.
Well, actually, there was a guy named Thoreau that I think had that idea a long time ago.
Right.
And his motto was simplify, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and even before him, you can go back to the Stoics. I mean, so you can look at Epictetus, you can look at Marcus Aurelius from
Look at Solomon.
Yeah. I mean, every world religion has a similar story of simplifying, not necessarily getting rid of everything, although in some cases that may be apropos, but getting rid of the excess, the stuff that's in the way. I look at minimalism not as the end game, but minimalism is basically the thing that gets us past the physical things so we can focus on life's most important things.
I think that's the best part of minimalism is the clearing out of distractions and allowing you to gather a focus. However, I do get the sense from reading and watching. I watched the Netflix documentary you guys put together, by the way, which is called Minimalism. You can check it out on Netflix if you want. My wife and I were watching it, and I'm probably the clutter guy at my house, or at least the not cleanup guy at our house.
Yeah.
And she was all in on you guys. She was excited about it.
Okay.
But the day
I'm sorry, or you're welcome. I don't know.
well, the day I tell her, we're going to have to reduce the house size, and we're not going to have these things. Those sorts of things would be a little bit of a shock to her, I think.
Not reduce the amount of children.
But John cleaning up his Lego collection would be high on her list. But anyway, yeah. So getting rid of the distraction is a great part of it. But I do see, it seems to me like people latch onto minimalism as a way to operate their life and find fulfillment in the minimalism lifestyle, but not necessarily into another thing. And I guess the reason it was hard for me to catch on to minimalism as a parent,
Sure.
like the thing that I center my life along, would be faith and children. And then other stuff comes in way below that.
Yeah.
And relationship, my wife, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then board games come a little bit later after that, right? But those big things, the important stuff, is something that I feel like a lot of people are distracted by in the chase for other stuff.
Yes.
Right. But the minimalism lifestyle is just a way to open a gate to find those other things.
Well, let's ask you guys. So tell me.
I'm Ryan.
Right. Okay.
This is Josh.
So Ryan, you haven't had a chance to say much yet. So
well, that's okay. What do you want me to say?
I want to ask you what is your philosophy about why did you get into this? And you guys are obviously very good friends.
Yeah, I mean we've been best friends since we were fat little fifth graders.
Okay.
And I was in a very
he was fat.
Yeah. Dude.
I was the fattest kid in school.
Yeah, actually, when I
Wow.
got so I moved. My parents were split up. I moved in with my dad in the fifth grade. It was the first day of school at my new school, and I remember walking into class and thanking the Lord that there was a kid fatter than me. So Josh and I became friends very quickly. We bonded over cheeseburgers and cheese fries and cheese sticks and other cheese-related products.
Sure.
But yeah, we grew up together for 20-something years. We had worked at the same corporation, climbing the corporate ladder together. And I had got to the same point where it's really strange. Like if you were to have told my 28-year-old self what my 18-year-old self what my 28-year-old self would have had, I would have been like the most excited 18-year-old. Like, oh my God, I'm going to have a huge house with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and 2 living rooms. Like, I have no idea why a single guy would ever need 2 living rooms.
But I had a cat.
For football games.
Right, right, for football
Inside.
games. Yeah, so maybe in case like one burnt down or something, I had a spare living room. But no, I had everything that I ever wanted, much like Josh. And it got to a point where I wasn't happy. Like instead of happiness, I had a lot of discontent. I was miserable. I was doing a lot of drugs. I was drinking a lot. I was using as many pacifiers as I could to, supplement the 60, 70, sometimes 80-hour work weeks that I was working. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, something has got to change. Like, I mean, anyone who has gone down that road of drugs and alcohol, they know it goes only so far. And I was getting to that point where I knew something had to change. So, Josh introduces me to this thing called minimalism. And I'm like...
Through Twitter?
No, not through Twitter. Actually...
Through Cheeseburger?
You know what happened is I noticed a significant change in Josh's attitude. I remember the first time I really thought, holy crap, like something's going... Josh is onto something. Like, I don't know what's going on. He was at dinner Christmas Eve with his partner at the time, and our boss was like blowing up his phone at like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And Josh used to manage a bunch of retail stores. I used to do like the business side of the retail stores. But he was calling to get the sales numbers. And it was so important because, Christmas Eve, it wasn't the biggest sales day of the year, but it was a pretty big sales day in the retail world. So he's trying to get sales numbers from Josh. And finally, Josh answers the phone. He's like, can I help you with something? And he's like, yeah, man. Why aren't you answering my calls? I need your numbers. My boss needs the numbers. What's going on? Da-da-da. And Josh was like, I'm sorry, but what you're asking is unreasonable. It is 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and I'm at dinner. And I just remember Josh relaying that story to me, and I thought, like, what the heck is going on? So I noticed this change. So I invited Josh out to a really, really nice lunch. I took him to Subway. And as we were sitting there, I was like, dude, what is going on with you, man? Are you on drugs or something? Like, did the doctor give you some, like, antidepressants? Like, I want what you're on. And, why the heck are you so happy? And he was like, no, man, like, he just started talking about this thing called minimalism and told me for, like, 20 minutes. And I'm like, this is common sense stuff. Like, this makes... Go ahead.
And with that, we're going to take a break.
All right.
So we have to take a minimal break. So we're actually, it's a maximal break.
And hopefully get maximum profit for our advertisers and ourselves.
Darn right.
Yes.
We're getting right back. But, we have 4 lines open. If you want to visit with Joshua and Ryan, we're talking about minimalism. Does this strike a chord in you? Or is this like, whoa, what's going on here on the radio today? 721-1290 is our number. We'd love to hear from you. This is Talk Back. We'll be right back. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. You can make your comments on our Facebook page. We're talking with Josh and Ryan about minimalism. And I've been practicing that all week, so I can say minimalism without messing it up. So
yeah, we were just chatting a little bit about your experience of joining the Take This Job and Shove It movement. So tell us about, you got this call from your boss, right, in the middle of the night. On Christmas Eve, or at 7 on Christmas Eve when you're having dinner, and you watched him respond to this.
Yeah, I mean, kind of in our world, we were so focused on we were on call like doctors, but we weren't saving anybody. I mean, I couldn't even save myself. Yeah, I was working 362 days a year, and
forgive me. What kind of business were you guys in?
So I managed 150 retail stores, which I know is really ironic with the whole minimalism thing now, right? But we were in retail and telecom, so just somewhere in the Midwest, Cincinnati, Ohio. And I had sort of gotten to that point where I was so discontented with always being on call and constantly living up to someone else's expectations. I had lost focus on what was important. In fact, I was at that point in my life where I didn't even know what was important anymore. And it took sort of getting rid of some of the stuff before I started being happier.
Would you mind telling us what was important?
Yeah. At the time?
Well, maybe even now. You get rid of everything.
Sure.
And then you find what?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. In terms of priorities, I think we often pay lip service to the things we say are our priorities. I used to say that my health is a priority, but I weighed 80 pounds more than I weigh now. I'd say my relationships are a priority, but my marriage ended and I forsook the people closest to me. I used to say creativity was a priority in my life, but I was an aspiring writer. But that really means I didn't actually write. I aspired every day, but I didn't do much, right? I used to say, contribution was something that was important to me, or I would say that personal growth was important. But our real priorities are how we spend the 24 hours we have in each day. So my real priorities were, were perusing Facebook or watching television or incessantly checking email or going through spreadsheets. And there's nothing inherently wrong with those things, but when they take away time from those truly important things, health, relationships, contribution, then they're in the way of what is important. And so I had to get rid of some of the excess stuff because I was also treating the things in my life, the material things, not as tools, but as something that to pacify myself, to cover up what was truly important.
Okay, for all of those folks out there who are workaholics, such as myself, I average about 15, 16 hours a day. Okay, I have my own business. I work here.
Yeah.
My kids are grown and gone. Right, no grandkids yet, so it's okay for me to do that. But I guess my question to you guys is, let's get really practical here.
Yes.
How do you live? Okay, I mean, do you have a house? Do you rent an apartment? Do you just live in a little
in a
van down by the river or what? I mean, seriously, I think people are out there going, well, what does it mean to live minimally?
Sure.
If you could give me an example.
Yeah, definitely. First I'll say the way Josh and I live, we live different lives because we have different interests and different priorities. So this is our recipe that we're sharing. So this is not a prescriptive thing for anyone to take hold of and follow ingredient by ingredient. I think there are ingredients here that people can take away and find advantage of in their life. But I just want to preface it with that. So if you were to go to my home right now, I live in an apartment, you would not jump up and say, "Oh my God, the people that live here, they must be minimalists." You would probably just say, "Oh wow, you know what? These folks that live here, they're pretty tidy." And that is because everything that I have in my home, it adds value to my life. It serves a purpose or it brings me joy. I have 2 couches. Oh my God. I know I'm such a hypocrite. I know I have 2 couches. But you know what? I have game nights on talking about board games.
Oh man, we got to play sometime.
Yeah, dude, you can totally come over. You could totally come over and have a game night with us, man. But I use those 2 couches on a very, very regular basis. Josh does not have 2 couches. He is an introvert. He does not have game nights. Game night to him is miserable.
Yeah, well, game night for me is, so I have a partner and we have a 3-year-old, so my life has changed even from age 28, right? So as a minimalist, everything I own serves a purpose or brings me joy.
You know what? I'm so happy you said you had a 3-year-old because watching the minimalism documentary, I got the sense that this is a lifestyle for people that don't have kids.
Well, let's talk about it. That was actually one of the things that was really appealing to me. When I first stumbled across minimalism, there was a guy named Colin Wright who owned, you saw him in the documentary, he owns 52 things. Everything he owns fits in his backpack. That works really well for him because he loves traveling all over the world. But then I found these other minimalists. There were minimalist families like Leo, who's in the documentary, and his wife Eva, and they have 6 kids. And they live in the city in San Francisco, but they're a minimalist family. And then there was Joshua and Kim Becker and their 2 kids in the suburbs. And I realized, oh, wait a minute. Minimalism isn't one size fits all, and it's not about deprivation. What it's about is getting those things out of the way that you thought were important.
It's prioritization.
Yes,
it absolutely is.
Absolutely.
Now, for someone like Peter, I mean, there's this sense that I think most of us have that minimalism is a hippie movement of let's go do.
Are you
drugs
saying that because I have long hair?
Well, you brought that on yourself. This is Missoula. It's okay, and you can wear sandals and socks, whatever. I'm cool with it. I will play hacky sack later too.
I would argue that socks with sandals is not minimalist at all.
Well, it's less than shoes and socks. But there is this sense that that a lot of people feel that it's some kind of go into the woods, Thoreau sort of movement where you could actually find fulfillment in your work like Peter does, and that could be part of your minimalist lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think people mistaken minimalism for being like an ascetic monk. And, it's funny, if we were to go to a monastery and talk about minimalism, they'd probably put us to shame. I mean, I think that's probably the terminus of it. And I think that's where people go when they hear that word minimalism. It sounds a bit subversive. But, that's why Josh and I are going around sharing our recipe. That's why we came up with the documentary to show, like, hey, look, minimalism is not about having stark white walls and not having anything in your house and not providing toys or gifts for your children. It's just about doing it so deliberately. When Josh first introduced me to the minimalist concept, the first thing I thought, I was like, wait a minute. This is common sense. This isn't minimalism. This is just common sense stuff. But unfortunately today, common sense isn't so common. So, it took me to first have this idea to realize, like, okay, I need to start applying this common sense philosophy to my life. And I didn't really know where to start. I looked at Josh and I was like, hey, man, I want to be a minimalist. I want to do what you did, but I don't want to take several months to simplify my life. I want to, do something now. I had to take, drastic action. So that's where Josh and I came up with the idea of a packing party.
Cool. Okay, we're going to come back. That's a nice lead-in. I like that. We're going to come right back. We have 4 lines open if you want to talk with these guys. These are great guys, by the way. 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. That's John King over there. I'm Peter Christian, Joshua Millburn, and Ryan Nicodemus. What a great biblical name.
Thanks.
That is just so cool. So now, we were talking during the break about the fact that we live in a world, we just finished what we call a commercial break. Okay,
right.
we live in a world that is, especially in America, where it's dominated by consumerism. Okay,
right.
So as minimalists, how do you see the whole consumer, crazed culture that we live in?
Well, let's look at that, because I don't think so. We all need some stuff, right? So I don't think consumption is the problem. We all have to own some things. I'm not about walking around with a loincloth on and owning nothing, right?
I can verify that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this. If consumption isn't the problem, then compulsory consumption, feeling like we must consume all of these things because we're inundated with 5,000 advertising messages every single day, and not all of them are bad. Some of them actually fulfill a need. But what we've seen in this post-industrial consumer society is many advertisements will actually try to create a false need for something. And so we have to be careful. And really it's about being discerning. The things that add value to my life may not add value to yours. And even the things that added value to my 28-year-old self's life when I was first decluttering and simplifying my life, but even before we started the Minimalists.com, I started simplifying my life. And now I realize that, okay, just because something adds value today, it may not add value tomorrow. So I have to be willing to let go and bring new things into my life accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, here's the thing, too, is our economy is based on consumption, right? So if everyone stopped buying today, the economy would crash. There is no doubt about it. But when people spend too much, when they buy too much, as we saw in 2008, the economy still crashes. So, I like to think as minimalism as a way to kind of find the balance, to live more deliberately and kind of curb that compulsory consumption that eventually drove us to the crash in 2008.
We do have a caller on the line if you guys want to strap your headphones on.
For sure.
This is Ron. Ron, you're on with our guests. Good morning.
Hey, you guys.
Hey, Ron.
You younger generation guys, I'm 71. You come up with some interesting words like minimalism.
We used to call that being poor, right, Ron?
Yeah, we used to call that poverty.
Well, I think it's interesting, Ron. I think you bring up a really good point. I grew up really poor in a town called Dayton, Ohio. I had a single alcoholic mother. We were on food stamps and government assistance. And I thought the reason we were so discontented when we were growing up, so unhappy, is because we didn't have a lot of money. And that was certainly a contributing factor. But then, of course, when I turned 18, I went out and got the corporate job. And I spent the next decade climbing the corporate ladder until I was the director of operations for 150 retail stores, which sounds really impressive. But then I also experienced, you know what? I'm not happy doing this either. And it turns out the discontent didn't necessarily come from the lack of money. It came from the continued poor decisions. And having money in my 20s allowed me to just continue those poor decisions, but on a grander scale. And so I made really good money, but I spent even better money. And so I had massive amounts of debt. I had 6 figures worth of debt. And so I wasn't contented by that either. And I knew I needed to figure out something else. We all hear that money doesn't buy happiness. But you know what? Neither does poverty. And it's really about finding that balance. We all have to pay the bills. There's nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, but it's really about not putting the money first in my life and still earning a living. I'm not allergic to money now. It's just no longer the primary driver for doing what I do.
So Ron, anything else?
Yeah, I kind of sort of went through some of the same stuff. In my case, I was general contractor and went through that whole routine and then wrecked my body, you know. And but I stuck with a little carpentry here and there, and
now you're doing it because you enjoy it, right?
Pardon?
Now you're doing it because you enjoy it.
Well, no, my body doesn't do it at all anymore.
Gotcha. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, I love carpentry work, but boy, my body sure doesn't.
Sure.
And anyway, so I got into working with making structures smaller, small cottages that will function a lot better for 2 or 3 people, you know, and simple things like if you've got a bed in a room, if you elevate that bed 4 feet, you've got a closet under it. And it can also function as a clothes dryer.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's...
the tiny houses, right?
You were right on something. In the minimalism documentary, there's quite a bit of footage of these
Thanks for the call,
people that are doing this smaller planning sort of lifestyle.
Yeah, I was going to say one of my favorite interviews is with Frank the architect that we had in the documentary. He talked about how, you know, when he designs a home for someone, he doesn't ask them if they want a dining room, because of course they're going to say, yes, I want a dining room. And do you want that second living room? And if they're like, oh yeah, can we fit that in there? Yeah, of course they're going to want that second living room. So he said something that really stood out to me about how when he designs a home, he thinks about how he can design an appropriate home. What is appropriate for this person's life? Instead of building this huge house and cramming a life into it, it's more about designing a home around someone's life and how they live. So I'm with you, Ron. That is great.
Ron had one more point.
Oh, yeah,
quick.
yeah.
He's on the...
I'm sorry, Ron. I'll let you go too soon. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. If you read back in history, you'll find out that if a system breaks down, like ours could real quick the way it's set up right now, the only people that really survive well are the people that own a little scrap of ground, that have some garden for food and maybe a pig and some chickens, you know. And that's one thing I'm seeing with your generation is this kind of refusal to own anything. And owning a little piece of land is just, historically, has always been just almost a dictate. So it's, I guess, with your generation, what I'm hearing and seeing quite a lot that kind of worries me is that ownership seems to be almost an evil thing.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, I want to say, like,
Thanks, Ron.
I'm not against ownership by any stretch. I don't own a piece of land in a home right now because, I will not go into debt at this point in my life. Like, I am debt-free. I just became debt-free a couple of years ago. It's the first time I've been debt-free since I was given a credit card at 18 years old. So I'm not ready to go into debt right now. And plus, I'm not ready to settle down right now. But, I'm with Ron. Like, one day I really hope that, like, I have this so my partner Mariah, her parents live down in Hamilton, and they've got a couple acres, and they got this nice clear acre. And, like, one day my dream is to build, like, a tiny home on there and own that one, that little piece of land. So, we're not against ownership. It's more about not buying into the ownership because that's what we feel like we have to do.
Then we're going to come right back. 721-1290 is our number. I feel bad taking breaks with you guys, but we're going to come right back. We have 4 lines open if you'd like to talk with Josh and Ryan about minimalism. We'll be back in just a moment. Talk back is our number, 721-1290 is 1-800-568-5309. We have our Facebook page if you can't get away, or if you're busy working in the corporate grind or whatever it is you're doing right now. Okay, go ahead.
Well, we have 2 things. First, before we run out of time and forget, you are doing a presentation here in Missoula coming up, right?
Yeah, we'll be at the Denison Theater on, I think it's May 10th? May 9th. May 9th, yeah. Thank you. And you can find all the details at our website, theminimalists.com. But we're going to do a live version of our podcast, The Minimalist Podcast. We also give an in-depth talk about minimalism, exactly how we got there and give you the sort of full run. And
So let me ask you this. Is the stage show that you're going to put on, is it much like we're doing here, or is it just you guys have an act and a script and all this stuff?
It's relatively simple, right?
It is, okay.
And so we get up there, we give a talk, and we really interact with the audience as well. And then you can come out afterward. We always give out free hugs. Well, they're free and transferable.
Don't worry, Peter. You don't have to. Don't worry. I tried to get Peter a hug earlier. I'm like, are you a hugger? He's like, no.
I think Peter's afraid of what you might transmit to him.
That's okay.
We do have a caller on the line, Grace.
Let's get Grace on the line. Grace, good morning, and thanks for joining us. Hi. Are you talking with Joshua and Ryan? Go ahead.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Grace.
Hi. I have a question for you. There have been a few articles that have gotten a lot of shares and so on social media lately that critique minimalism from the perspective of that minimalism is actually a luxury, that only people who are wealthy enough to be able to buy what they need when they need it are able to pursue that kind of lifestyle, and that the minimalism also has kind of a cachet to it that is in some ways like a spiritual superiority kind of a thing.
It's like a hipster critique. Is that?
It's a what critique?
Like the critique of calling someone a hipster. It's someone that's embodying a lifestyle of too cool for school. I have this. I live this lifestyle, and that's what makes me important.
And you don't.
Yeah, that is like
right.
That kind of as a secondary question because really the important piece is if minimalism is a lifestyle that's a luxury that only people who've already made lots of money can afford to kind of jettison all of their belongings.
Let me ask you, Grace, is that what you think? Do you believe
no,
that
actually, I don't. I really believe in the idea of living with intention and with having things in your life that make sense for your life. That's how I try to live.
Are you super rich, Grace?
Heck no.
So she does make an interesting critique, though, in the sense that both of your stories start, or in the process, you became very successful and wealthy.
Yes.
And then back down from that.
Yeah.
And so you had a place to jump from, right?
So we experienced both sides of it. And I can tell you that minimalism, especially when you come to our events, you'll see people from all walks of life. We've had factory workers and CEOs of Fortune 1000 companies show up at the same exact event. And I think ultimately we're all asking the same question. How do I live a more meaningful life? How do I regain control because I feel like I'm out of control? Now, that manifests differently for each of us. That factory worker, he was trying to figure out, man, I really wanted to buy this new pair of jeans, or should I pay my rent? And the CEO was like, why do I get so angry when the fourth TV in my second home goes out? And we're realizing, like, both people are saying, I really want to regain control of my life.
It's a matter of scale.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And so during the break, we were talking about the hedonic treadmill. Like, once you get something, all of a sudden it becomes commonplace, and then you want more and more and more and more.
The law of diminishing returns.
And anyone who thinks that out there, I would just ask them to come to one of our events and see the diversity that shows up. I mean, one of my favorite stories is a guy who came up to me in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and he was like, "Man, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for having this free event." This was like back when Josh and I could just do a free event in a bookstore and maybe 30 or 40 people would show up. But he's like, thanks so much for having it for free. He's like, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to make it. He's like, but also more importantly, he's like, man, I'm a fighter. Like, he was a boxer. And he was like, I'm the guy that they put into the ring when there's a star attraction and he beats the crap out of me. He's like, but I absolutely love what I do. He's like, I also train. He's like, but I am dirt poor. He's like, I sleep on my friend's couch. He's like, but because of your message, I don't feel like a loser anymore. He's like, thank you so much for your message, because now, like, I know I'm doing what I love, and it's okay that I'm not a rich guy from this fighting. I would rather do what I love than go out and try to make.
You make getting beat up look cool.
Right, exactly.
Right. Good job, guys.
And with that, we're up against another break. Pete and Alan are standing by. We have two other lines open. Listen, if we get all four lines going, these guys get a T-shirt. So we're gonna.
But they'll give it back, I assume.
We're going to come right back.
Loincloths.
Yeah. All right. 721-1290 is our number. Go ahead, John.
I'm just upset that Peter hasn't played Lean On Me as a transitional song yet.
I don't have it.
What is going on?
Well, let me see if I can find it.
He's been telling me this joke all morning, and he hasn't paid off yet.
I will look and see.
All right. Well, we got Pete on the line.
Yeah, we certainly do. All right, Pete, you are on with our guests, Joshua and Ryan. Go ahead.
Good morning. I see this opportunity and your philosophy and what you're practicing to be a good thing to provide our mayor and city council with a free clinic.
Amen.
Because they're really into acquisition and growth and get more and more and more and forgot why they really were there in the first place. Thank you.
All right.
Interesting critique.
Little political commentary.
Yeah,
there.
thanks for the comment, Pete.
You bet. All right, let's move on. Let's get to Alan on the line. Alan, go ahead. You're on.
Yeah, good morning. I got 3 points I'd like to make. Now, the lady talked about minimalism is only for the rich. But if you practice minimalism, I believe it's a way to consume less and by that gain more wealth.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, so like I said earlier, it's not like we're allergic to money. I think we all need to pay the bills. It's no longer the primary driver for doing what we decide to do. I'd rather my decisions be based on my values, on my beliefs, my interests, my desires, than on getting a paycheck.
And then you hear the advertisements. The more you spend, the more you save.
I love that.
Oh, my goodness.
I got to tell you, Alan, as a copywriter, I write commercial copy. That is one phrase I have never used.
That is awesome.
Because when I think about that phrase, all I want to do is vomit.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's no truth in that statement.
No, we always see something is 50% off at the store.
I'd be stupid not to buy it.
It's 100% off if you don't buy it.
That's right. And the fourth point goes along with what Pete said. If minimalism is good for the people, why isn't it good for our governments?
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, Josh and I will be running for president and vice president. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Thanks, Alan.
Which one is president, by the way?
I'm smart enough to know I'm not smart enough.
Yeah. So I guess that would make me president.
Okay. We do need to get back to packing party.
Oh, yes.
And let's just explain what that is real quick.
Okay, so so if there's someone at home right now listening and they're like, I've got this hoard of stuff. Great, this minimalism idea sounds awesome. And by the way, minimalism just starts with the stuff. It just, you get that out of the way first to make room for what really matters. So I started with a packing party. When Josh introduced this idea to me, we decided to pack all my belongings as if I were moving, and then I would unpack only the items I needed over the next 3 weeks.
Wow.
So Josh came over to my house and literally helped me box up everything, my clothes, my kitchenware, my towels, my TVs, my electronics, my framed photographs and paintings, my toiletries, even my furniture, everything. We literally pretended like I was moving. So, there Josh and I were sitting with this big stack of boxes. Everything was marked really well, a bathroom, bedroom, closet, junk drawer number 1, junk drawer number 7, so forth and so on. I spent the next 21 days unpacking only the items I needed. My toothbrush, some bed and bed sheets, clothes for work, the furniture I actually used.
Fresh underwear.
Yeah, fresh underwear. So after 3 weeks, and this was my light bulb moment. This is where I was like, dude, we're onto something. Like, this is really amazing, is where after 21 days, I had 80% of my stuff still sitting in boxes, just sitting there. And I thought to myself, I'm like, here are all these things I brought into my life to make me happy, and 80% of them aren't doing their job. So that's when I decided to let go, and I went to Josh, and I'm like, dude, this is a very interesting concept. Like, I don't think anyone at home, I don't think everyone at home could do a packing party. Like, it's great for a single guy, but, a family of 6, probably not so practical.
You pack up Chicky blanket, and we're done.
Well, that would come out. It'd be the first item.
That would be the first item out.
Yeah. But, I went to Josh, and I'm like, I think the story will resonate with people, though. And that's really where the Minimalists.com started. It was with that packing party story. But, I consider that, kind of being on one side of the spectrum on where to start.
Well, let me ask you this. I totally buy into the whole idea of it, but I would struggle to become a minimalist because of the way that I treat items. And I don't know if it's me. I just know how my mind works. But you know how, when people eat food, sometimes certain foods remind them of their mom or their dad or their family or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, for me as a kind of tactile guy, I imbue items, especially toys. I know it's weird, but as an adult, I have lots of them. I imbue toys with memories. And so it's a way for me to keep track of myself. And I lose my memories very frequently. And when I see that object again, I recall it. And that's it's kind of like a way for me to keep myself around, from my past self around, I guess you could say. Sure. but it ends up, I get all this stuff, and other people don't see the value in it, right? But, well, you're like, well, you weren't there when I got that in Japan. You weren't there when I got that here, So
Right.
How do you talk to someone like me, like, with that issue? That's my biggest hurdle to minimalism.
When my mother passed away, I was living in Dayton, Ohio. She was down in St. Pete Beach, Florida. And so I flew down there to deal with her stuff, right? And I got to her apartment, and I found about 3 apartments worth of stuff crammed into her tiny 1-bedroom apartment. Now, it's not like she was a hoarder, but she had 65 years worth of accumulation.
Right, right.
And my mom had this stuff, and I, of course, I did what any good son would do. I called up U-Haul, and I ordered the largest truck they had. In fact, I needed one so large I had to wait an extra day until the 26-foot truck was available. And I invited some of Mom's friends over to help me deal with her stuff because there was just too much stuff to go at it alone. I looked at all of her rooms, and it was just filled with stuff. I mean, she had 14 winter coats stuffed into her bedroom closet. She lived in St. Pete Beach, Florida, and had 14 winter coats. And so, of course, I also did what any good son would do. I rented a storage locker. You see, I couldn't commingle Mom's stuff with my stuff. I already had a big house and a full basement full of stuff. But that storage locker, that would let me hold on to everything, just in case I needed it someday in some non-existent hypothetical future. Just in case.
There you go.
Right.
The 3 most dangerous words in the English language. And I learned
That's my lawyer's name, by the way.
Peter's on fire this morning.
And so I looked at these things, and I all of a sudden found these 4 boxes under her bed. And it was these old printer paper boxes. They were heavy, sealed with excessive amounts of packing tape, and I pulled them out one by one. I noticed that each box just had a number on the side, 1, 2, 3, 4. It was my old elementary school paperwork, grades 1 through 4. And I said, "Oh, Mom's holding on to all the memories in these boxes, like what you were talking about, holding on to all the memories." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. These boxes have been sealed for more than 2 decades. It's clear that Mom hadn't been accessing the memories in those boxes." And that helped me realize something important for the first time in my life. Our memories aren't in our things. Our memories are inside us. And my mom didn't need to hold on to those boxes to hold on to a piece of me. And so I that's where I really started to let go.
We need to take a break, and we need to get 2 calls on. Sorry, John. We have Ben and Janice who both want to visit with you. Maybe we'll just say heck with Rush Limbaugh and keep you guys on. We're going to be right back. We're back on Talkback, 721-1290. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so real quick, before we run out of time, and we're going to run all these calls if we can.
Let's do it. Lightning round.
We want to just grab advice. For someone like me, they probably can't do a packing party with 3 kids.
Sure.
With Chicky Blanky being a sore point.
Not
there.
with that attitude.
Tell me what sort of things we could do to start.
3 quick things. First thing you want to do is ask yourself a question. How might my life be better with less? And that will help you identify what the benefits of minimalism are. Not just the how-to, but the why-to. Far more important. And then from there, you can move on to the how-to. We've had tens of thousands of our readers at theminimalists.com. They've played something called the 30-day minimalism game. We all realize that decluttering is a bit boring. We found a way to make it more compelling with some friendly competition. So you partner up with a friend or family member over the course of the month. It's a free game. You play it. You can find the details at our website, theminimalists.com/game. And if once you get past that, whoever goes the longest wins, and if you both make it to the end of the month, you've both won because you've gotten rid of a bunch of stuff that was really in the way.
Now, okay, I understand. You understand the concepts of rummage and garage sales.
Mm-hmm.
I put my junk out there. You buy my junk.
Yes.
I come to your house. I buy your junk, and we both have more junk.
Yeah.
So how does this work with minimalism? I mean, if I get rid of all my stuff, somebody else is going to have it, and they won't be able to be a minimalist.
Right, but the things that add value to your life may not add value to someone else's life, and the opposite is also true. Just because you don't get value from something doesn't mean someone else won't get value from that thing.
Gotcha. All right, let's get to the phones. Ben, you are on Talkback. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Guys, as I've gotten older and into my 40s, I notice rebranding of older ideas, and I applaud you. I agree with everything you say. One thing that I think kind of has gone out of fashion with the younger generations in the country today is Christianity and a belief in God and a relationship with God. And I found it interesting as I'm listening to you present your idea of minimalism, that this is something that exists in the Bible, the teachings that nothing of this world and worldly possessions will bring you true happiness, but instead love, a relationship with God, and love between each other is what will bring us happiness. And so that's a very old message, and I just wondered what your thoughts and views are on my view that this is a rebranding of a very fundamental teaching from the Bible. Okay. And I'll leave you to answer. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. No, I totally agree. I think that this concept of living simple or living deliberately or minimalism, this is a very, very old idea that is an answer to a new problem that we have right now. And it's so.
What is the new problem, real quick?
The new problem is this post-industrial compulsory consumption society that we are steeped in. Like we said earlier, you see so many bits of input, so many advertisements. You get all those bits of input. They seed subconsciously, and we have to figure out a way to filter some of those out. Because buying that nice luxury car with a big bow on it for your spouse for Christmas, that might make them happy, up until that first car payment. So there has to be something to filter through all this noise. They did not get 5,000 advertisements back when Jesus was doing his work. I guarantee that. So it's funny when you come to if you come to one of our events, you'll probably see someone come up to us and they'll say, "You know what? It is so nice to see two young men going around and spreading the word of Jesus Christ." And we just kind of smile and nod, and we're like, "Great! Like, we're so glad you get that out of
Ryan, you look like an impersonator of the European Jesus stereotype."
Well, and then someone will come up a couple guests later, and they'll say, "You know what? It is so nice to see two men going around and teaching Buddha's teachings. It's so nice to see two Buddhists going around and spreading the word of Buddha." And then we got an email just a few months ago that said Muhammad, he was the original minimalist. So no, I certainly agree that there is one thing in common with all of the world's major religions, I think, and it is this idea of living simple, and it is focusing on love, and it is focusing on your neighbor. It's not focusing on what your neighbor has. It's more of how you can help your neighbor, and that's exactly what Josh and I try to.
Let's get one more call in. Janice, you are on Talk Back with Josh and Ryan. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I've enjoyed this conversation very much. For all of the parents out there that are listening to this, as we have been victims of commercialism and we strive for control and discipline in our own life, I do believe that you can raise your kids with a simpler mindset. I believe you can turn off the TV, don't buy the electronics, enjoy nature and look outside and watch the things bloom and the birds come back.
But Janice, whatever you do, don't turn off the radio.
That's one thing Josh and I didn't get rid of, by the way, was our radio.
It's free.
But I'm a mom that's able to say my 4 children purposely were raised on a more simple level, and now they have PhDs and they're very successful.
Wow.
Because they used their imagination, they used creativity, and they got away from stuff.
I love that, Janice.
Very cool. Thanks, Janice.
Thank you very much.
All right, we only have 2 minutes, and if people go and watch your documentary, they'll see shots of Missoula.
Oh, yeah.
So just tell us the story. Why did you end up here? Because we both know from earlier conversations you're not from here.
Yeah, so we're from Dayton, Ohio. We were driving through here on our very first book tour from Vancouver back to Dayton, and it was July in Missoula, right? We're driving through here. All of a sudden, I'm looking. It's I-90 between here and Phillipsburg. It's the first time in my life I've ever done triple take. There's the little rock face, and there's a little tiny waterfall.
The warm springs that's right there off of 90.
Yeah, I saw 6 kids skinny dipping off the side of the highway. They're college kids. It looked like what Abercrombie tries to affect in an ad or something. And right as I looked over on that third triple take there was a bald eagle flew overhead.
No joke.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
And you can't. The only thing that would have been more cliche.
Double rainbow too.
Yeah, well, he had a flag in his American flag in his talons,
and a fish in the other talon.
Right. Yeah.
We decided to come back out here and write we wrote a book called Everything That Remains, and that was really from when we drove back out here and said, hey, let's spend some time back in Montana.
Real quick, tell us when and where the show is.
So we'll be May 9th at Denison Theater. You can get tickets and all that other fun stuff.
Got to wait till May?
Yeah, I know, right?
All right.
But in the meantime, you can check out...
How do we find your podcast?
Just go to theminimalists.com. You can find tickets to the event there. The podcast is free. Hundreds of essays for free.
How much
does
it cost to get in?
I think it's $20-something.
Have you gone naked in a hot spring yet?
Yes.
Oh,
you have to. I mean, if you
I'm
haven't
a
done that,
minimalist.
live in Montana, then you're not a Montanan.
I have lived in Montana since I was in the 5th grade, and I've never been naked.
he's a never nude.
I've never. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever taken a shower or a bath without any clothes on. So it's just so you know, just in the matter of full disclosure. Hey guys, seriously,
or the opposite actually.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having us. This was great.
It's been a delight. You guys are awesome.
Thank you very much.
And we
You
appreciate you
guys
being
too.
with us. All right, so that's going to do it for today. John, I'm taking the day off tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow's our philosophy show. We'll have the University of Montana philosophy professors on.
All right, super. You guys have a great day. And again, thanks so much to Joshua Millburn and Ryan Nicodemus at Minimalists.com. And we are going to say goodbye for today, but John will be here tomorrow for the morning news show and for Catching the Big Ones and Talkback. So have a great day.